Hi, Eric Gibaud, ericgibaud.com, and today I'm going to tell you my 5 tips or advice, photography tips for October 2022. So let's start. So first tip. Well, very often people, when they start, they ask me, should I shoot in RAW file or in JPEG? They really don't know. Some people say until you shoot a RAW, you're not a pro, which is not true. Okay, until you don't shoot JPEG, you don't know what you do. Whatever things they tell. Okay, well, basically for me that's the following thing: you want a picture. Okay, so if you don't know how to develop a RAW file, maybe the result you obtain is not as good as what your camera gives you as a JPEG. Some camera gives excellent JPEG, so you're like disappointed. Okay, so when you start, just shoot both RAW plus JPEG. If the JPEG is fine, fine. If the JPEG is not fine, learn bit by bit how to develop a RAW file. But it means that you're not without anything, you're not disappointed, you've got some results. Okay, and also maybe in a year time there's a picture you really like, but now you realize you could have got better out of the shadows or highlights, or you could have fine-tuned a bit more. Well, you have the RAW file there. Although you did not use it, you have it, so you can still use it. You can practice developing your picture. You can your RAW file. You can practice editing all this. So I recommend you shoot both. After, well, you will decide if maybe you need only JPEG or only RAW file. But if you shoot both, you don't lose this opportunity to develop the RAW file, even if it's a year time, 2 years time, or whatever. Okay. Advice number 2. Very often they ask me, should I shoot my flash in TTL or in manual mode? For me, I only shoot my flashes in manual mode, but it doesn't mean TTL is no good. Okay, it's just matter of taste for me. But when you don't know about flash photography, TTL is a massive help, but it also has some downside. So to keep it simple, I would say, if you are in a situation that has a really changing situation, atmosphere, or light is changing, and your flash sometimes needs more or less power or adapt all the time, then TTL is a lot easier. Don't forget that a camera that makes a mistake, it's always a mistake that is not as bad as the photographer that makes a mistake. Okay, so you can work in TTL. Obviously, if the result is not good, you can always compensate exposure on the flash side. Okay, but that's as fast as working in manual. Okay, so but still, I think if you're, for example, in a discotheque or in indoor or visiting I don't know what, and sometimes more light, less light, more situation, different situation, use TTL and you're sure it will be more or less acceptable. But if you are in a stable situation, let's say you want to make portrait here of me. If you use TTL, for every picture is measuring light again. So imagine, sometimes your camera points at the back and then it will think there is a lot of light at my beard, and then at my shirt that is darker, then on my forehead, then my jacket. So picture after picture you will have different quantity of light. So it means when you look at the series of picture, if you're going to make 10 pictures of me here, you can choose someone nicer than me, okay, for that. And it means you will never get the same amount of light out of your flash every time. That's a problem. So in this case, it's a lot better to work in manual mode, because once you have the amount of light you want on my face, then you don't have to worry about flash configuration. You just keep shooting. In manual, that's locked, and that's it. The amount of light that would get to me will be always the same. If the distance of the flash doesn't change, okay? It depends on if you have your flash on your camera or out of camera, okay? But let's say it's out of the camera. So use manual. So to recap, that's simple. Unstable situation, use TTL. Stable situation, use manual mode. That's simple, okay? Tip number 3. Although most of us or many people work in manual exposure, manual mode for exposure. By the way, I've got a video here that explains how to expose in manual. Still, you must think separately. Things. What is your priority? To have the depth of field you want, more or less depth of field, or do you want movement or not on your picture? That's the key when you start preparing your exposure. If for you depth of field is the key factor, Obviously, when you're going to side of the distance and all this, when you're going to change your aperture, that will affect the depth of field. So you should start selecting an aperture that gives the depth of field you want, okay? For the distance, you already have all this, okay? And the focal length, obviously. So once you have this set, then you can play with speed and ISO, or maybe even flash, for the exposure, okay? On the other hand, if for you what's important is the motion, it means do I want to freeze the action, or for the contrary, I want like some flow in my picture, I want something moved, blur, motion blur, or whatever, then you will decide first on the speed you want for that. Or what speed do I need to freeze the action, and what, to the contrary, what speed do I need if you want to have motion blur, okay? Once you have that, then you will play with aperture and ISO for the exposure, okay? Or flash even if you need, okay? Obviously, there are some situations you will have to combine both, but still, you must think first, what is the priority in my picture? The depth of field, or freezing or not the motion, okay? That's simple. Tip number 4. I see that many people think about framing, about composing, about many things, but most of them never realize the distance. Distance is a really important matter in pictures for many things. For example, if you use flash, the distance between your flash or your light source could be the window here, okay? The light source, the distance is key. Like, I've got a flash here, well exposed on my face. If I double the distance from the flash like this, I get 4 times less light. If I get halfway, I get 4 times more light. So you see how important is distance in lighting, for example, okay? But then not just that. Let's say you want to make portraits, and some people don't realize the importance of distance. So they got a wide angle, and they want to frame a portrait really close, okay? And they say the problem with wide angle is because it's changed the shape of the face. That's not true. Wide angle don't change anything. What changes the shape of things, obviously super wide angle may change because it has some optical default on the side, okay, may change the shape of a building, maybe, okay. But I mean, when you make my you shoot a portrait of me with a wide angle, if you want to fill the frame, then you have to be really close. You realize that if you look at me without any camera, that distance, my nose is massive. If you step back like 1.5 meters, 1 meter, then you realize my nose is really the size of my ear. So what is changing the shape? The wide angle? No. What is changing the shape is the fact that you're too close to your subject, okay? So if you were checking all the time the distance of things, distance of subject, of object, or whatever, you would realize that maybe you're not using the right tool for what you want to get. You cannot pretend to have a really close-up portrait with a wide angle without any deformation. You need to step back and reframe your picture, or you need to use a different focal length that will oblige you to be a bit further, okay? But distance is a really important factor, and many people forget about it. Advice number 5, don't complicate yourself. I see sometimes people want to do like a photo shoot of a model, and they start with complicated lighting, complicated posing, all this, when they don't have much experience. So it means that they spend a lot of time until they finally get the picture they want, and when they get it, they are tired, the model is tired, or anything. It could be any, not necessarily a model picture, it could be it could be a landscape, whatever. Start with easy thing you know how to do, okay? So if you start with easy part, you will be more relaxed, everything will be easier, and then when you have what you wanted, several pictures that you really like, it was not too hard to make, then you still have time to work on the harder part. If you start the other way, when you finally get it, you're too tired, or you're not happy anymore about making more pictures, so you make few pictures, not as much as you wanted. Okay, so it's really important, start with the easy part, and then when you have time left, start to experiment and complicate things. When you will dominate these new things, then you will add them to your list of easy things. Okay, something when you edit picture. Let's say you do a reportage and then you have many pictures that need really fine-tuning the white balance because it was not well done, the colors are not nice, all that. And it's time-consuming. Why don't you start with the easy picture to retouch or to edit? Start with the easy one. Then finish with the hard one. It means like if your client or friend is waiting for pictures, it's not the same thing to say, yeah, I've got one picture ready, here it is, and next week I'll give you some more, than to say, well, I've got 10 pictures ready, and next week I will give you 2 more. Because his reaction will be very different, and your motivation too. If you start with the hard stuff, you get demotivated. It's a lot harder. So always start with the easy part. Well, that's it. These were my 5 tips for October 2022. I hope you liked the video. If you feel it may interest other people, please share it on social networks. If you have not done it yet, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Small button down here, so small bell. If you click on the bell, get notified when I upload a new video. My website, Gibaud.com. If you have any question, can leave a comment below. Also leave you links of my gear on Amazon, links of everything I've reviewed by K&F Concept, Mark, and Flashes by Westcott, and also link to my PayPal account in case you wanted to make a donation. Please take care of yourself and see you soon. Bye.